All right, so welcome to Talk Tuesday. Talk Tuesday is a virtual series of workshop conversations that provides a forum that amplifies the voices of marginalized and/or underrepresented communities around various topics centered around intersectionality and social justice. The series plans to serve as a catalyst to promote, celebrate, and increase cultural awareness at Georgia State University, encourage cross-cultural dialogue and engagement, and advance global and intercultural fluency and cultural competency. Each workshop topic is uniquely designed and expertly facilitated to create a safe environment for authentic conversation, varying viewpoints, and cultural exchange. Selected guest speakers help to shift personal paradigms and facilitate learning and understanding through their scholarship, service, and storytelling. The topics and speakers presented do not represent the views of the Multicultural Center or Georgia State University, but are intended to reflect contemporary social concerns. All are welcome to take part in these cultural conversations. I am your host, William Brito, and on this Talk Tuesday, in collaboration with the Office of International Initiatives and International Student and Scholar Services, we celebrate International Education Week with Business Meets World. Our panelists will have an introspective conversation on individual identity, cultural identity, and how these identities impact our experience within our career pathways. Our panelists include Anya Lackey, Director of Operations at Outlander Labs, Zarian Newbill, founder of the NOMO organization based in the Atlanta and Macon area, Lamanda Ballard, founder of Flowco based in Austin, Texas, and Daniel Almaguer Gasper, GSU alumni. So before we begin, I'd like to give Kimberly Henshaw, head of the Chinese Language, Culture, and Business Initiatives, a moment to speak about Georgia State's Global Scholars Distinction Program.
Thank you, William. We know that global competence is an important and desirable skill that enhances the ability to work and communicate with diverse groups and to adapt to new and changing environments. If you're a student who wants to strengthen your global competence and add a global dimension to your degree and resume, you may be interested in the Global Scholars Distinction Program, given at graduation to students who have taken at least 5 Global Scholars courses that develop these skills. Feel free to learn more at the website, which is currently being shared in the chat. Thank you, William, and thank you, panelists, for joining us on this Talk Tuesday.
Awesome. All right, so cultural identity has been a huge topic of conversation for the past few years and has shifted the operations of many businesses, institutions, and organizations. The importance of acknowledging our identities is becoming increasingly important in how we choose our career pathways. So before we jump into the questions, let's allow our esteemed guests to introduce themselves and share with us the work they do. So I'm going to start moving from who I see first all the way down. We're going to start first with Daniel.
All right. It's always fun to find the mute button. But thank you, William, very much for the introduction. My name is Daniel Almaguer Gaspar. I am a field organizer with the Democratic Party of Georgia and also the sector vice president of Georgia Sector 1 of Lambda Theta Phi Latin Fraternity Incorporated. I'm a first generation Latino here in the United States and the first in my family to graduate. In terms of how the identity intersects with my workplaces, I always lead with my identity. It helps me connect with others in the sense of there is a common background of being marginalized. There is a common background of not having the same privileges as in one another. So being able to have that and helps me in my work to relate and communicate to others when I am working, so I can speak to some of the pain that someone has felt and advocate for the candidates up ahead of an election. And I would just like to preface this by saying I am not speaking on behalf of the Democratic Party of Georgia. I am speaking upon myself, just to make that clear. But at the end of the day, it helps establish that common ground. It helps it helps someone realize like, oh, they're not too far off from me. We may be different in terms of age, we may be different in terms of race, but they know to an extent the pain that I feel.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Next on my vision or my view screen, I have Ms. Zarian Newbill. You're muted, Zarian.
Okay, is that better?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So my name is Zarian Nubia. I'm the founder of the NOMO organization based out of Atlanta and also our chapter in Macon, Georgia as well. NOMO stands for Navigating Omitted Minds Over Time. It is an organization for transgender women of color. However, we do outsource to other communities as well. Some of the things that we do or that we offer at our organization: HIV prevention and intervention. We offer a scholarship program as well as community involvement. And we also do support groups, just not for transgender people, but our allies and people that would like to know more about who transgender people are. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Zarian. Next, we have Anya Lackey.
Hi, everybody. William, Kimberly, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation today. So as you mentioned earlier, I'm the Director of Operations at, excuse me, Outlander Labs. We are a Atlanta-based venture fund investing in early stage tech startups in the Southeast. Prior to joining Outlander, which is sort of a more recent engagement, we really started early September. My career focused around economic development. For close to 10 years, I led global commerce programs from the state down to the more local level, more recently with the Metro Atlanta Chamber. So think of it as our companies wanting to do business in foreign markets and vice versa, foreign companies coming to the US, more specifically to our region, starting operations and just hiring people here on the ground. And I guess for the purpose of this particular conversation, I'm also a first-generation immigrant. I was born and I grew up in Poland and came to the US back in 2004 and actually studied at Georgia State for my undergrad and my graduate studies. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Anya. We greatly appreciate you being here. And last, but certainly not least, we have Miss Lamanda Ballard.
Thank you, William, for having me. Hi, everybody. My name is Lamanda Ballard, and I am the founder and executive director of Flowcode. Flowcode is a 501c3 nonprofit I launched back in 2017. And our mission is basically to advance the common good by focusing on health, education, and social injustice within our own community. So as of now, we're currently the leading support organization in Texas for donating menstrual products, because that's one of our lead focuses. And we're almost at I think we're at 500,000 menstrual products we've donated since 2017. So that includes us donating to local nonprofits, shelters. We service over 90 schools within Central Texas, and also natural disaster victims, because Hurricane Harvey was really big within our state back then. We strive to educate, bring awareness, and end the stigma of menstruation within our society. And we also encourage our volunteers who come out to our flow parties to just continue to advocate for reproductive rights within Texas.
Awesome, awesome. Panelists, I'm so excited to have you all here. This is such a very diverse panel, and I'm interested to hear your answers and your perspectives and experiences based off the questions that we have for you all today. So I'm jumping right in. Our first question: what are some of your identities? And this could be ethnicity, religion, gender, sexuality, ability, and how important are these identities to your particular career pathway? And I'm going to start with Zarian, and then I will move to Anya.
Okay, can you all hear me? Awesome. All right, so My identity is I identify as a transgender woman of color. I do not have any type of religious affiliation with anything. But being a transgender woman living in America, living in the South, let me just make that plain. Living in the South is it's a struggle daily. However, because I have been fortunate enough to get an education, go to college, get my degrees, I've been able to actually work for the past 10 years, working with individuals that have developmental disabilities and behaviors as well. And with me working in that field is very good for me because I'm actually able to help people that are marginalized in a lot of different ways because they do have a disability or they may have a mental health behavior that a lot of people may not fully understand. And so tying that into who I am, a lot of people may not understand who transgender people are because they may have never interacted with a trans person of color. So it's very important for me to make sure that I carry myself in a way where I would want, where it passes, where it goes along the same lines of me treating my clients and my staff and other people in the company and volunteers that come in the company the same way I would want to be treated, and that's with respect, and that's with integrity too. And also another thing too, character comes along with that as well. The way you carry yourself in the workplace for me is how people respond to me. So I carry myself in a way to where I don't have to worry about people misgendering me in the workplace or being talked down or being talked about in the workplace. And so I take all of that and I use in the workplace with my clients and my staff as well, the same respect that I'm given by my staff and my individuals and my director, who's an amazing person. I give that same energy and same respect back to them. But character plays a big part because as transgender women, a lot of us have been so marginalized and have been overly sexualized in the broader perspective of a lot of different things, especially with television and a lot of other networks and sources. It's great to know that when people interact with a transgender woman of color, such as myself, they see that everyone is not the same. So character plays a major role in the workplace and how I carry myself and how I treat others.
Thank you so much, Zarian. Anya.
Sure. So I'll just start by saying that this idea of identity, I think before coming to the United States was never the top of mind for someone growing up in a country that is full of people that look the same. Most of them are of the same religion. And kind of growing up in a country that was initially, in my case, communist, then sort of getting the early years of democracy and everybody having the same amount of stuff. You sort of didn't distinguish yourself from anybody around you. So it was never really a topic even discussed in the community. And to be honest with you, even when I first came here, it wasn't really even something that I thought about a lot. I mean, I thought of myself more in terms of, a woman or a student or a friend. But, very quickly, I think you start thinking about it coming to the United States. I mean, you sort of get hit by the fact that people are diverse, people look different, and definitely coming to Georgia State University was a wonderful experience in that diversity very early on, and then kind of great experience as far as getting that exposure to people from all over early on in my career. So very quickly, you start thinking, okay, my identity, who am I? I come from Poland, to speak a different language. You definitely connect with people that come from a similar background to your own. And then even unwillingly, you start really kind of leveraging your identity, even in your workplace. I mean, in my case, working on the international trade side, one, being from a foreign country definitely influenced my interest in international and international business. I think almost unconsciously, I was sort of drawn to people that may not necessarily, that may look kind of like me, but also have the experience of that global mindset. And then just one thing that I've noticed just kind of in my years of professional career in international, that identity can open certain doors. You definitely connect with people maybe faster and quicker and more naturally in some ways, but also it challenges you to really see who else is out there and how people approach life in general, how people approach the business environment, and sort of learn from that. So I guess just to wrap it up, again, identity, not something that I thought much about before coming to the US, and this wonderful big lesson in what that means and what diversity is when I came here, came to study, and then came to work here. So yes, I'll just stop right here. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. And we'll close out this question with Lamanda and then Daniel.
Yeah, so I feel like my background may be a little bit different than everyone else's. I just simply identify as a Black woman. I'm spiritual. I feel like I put a lot of passion behind being who I am and showing up as my full self. And that's something that growing up I didn't have, where, yeah, we're told that you're Black, but you also have this stigma and all these stereotypes behind you. Like the expectation was for me to get pregnant by 13 because I was born in North New Jersey. And it's like, girls out of Jersey, we don't make it out the hood. That's what they say about us. And I think I was just fortunate enough to see my circumstances and see where I come from and understand that I am not my environment. Yes, I'm a product of this location. Yes, I'm a product of my family, but I don't have to become everything that I see. And so I think that's been my whole life, is creating my own identity, becoming myself, showing up as my full self in the workplace. I don't believe in code switching. I feel like who I am when I walk in the door is who I am when I leave. And I try to teach my team within my nonprofit the same thing. It's like, you don't have to code switch for me, honey. Like you be who you are, and this is a safe space for you. And when I have my nonprofit service events, it's the same thing for my volunteers. Like, it's okay for you to show up. If you're a trans man, we open our doors to you. If you're a little girl, you don't know quite which direction you're going in, this is the safe space to have those conversations. And that's why I think we've become so successful in such a short period of time, because we try not to discriminate, like, based on who someone is. Like, it's simply, you support us, we support you, and we want that to continue to be part of our mission and part of our goals. And so that's how I move, and that's how I navigate in life. And I think that's just, I'm okay with it.
Thank you, Lamanda. And finally, Daniel.
I always lead with the fact that I am a many times I am the first person of Latino descent that someone interacts with, right? So having that established pressure of, okay, I am essentially representing all Latinos, Latinas, Latinx in this conversation, so I can't afford to mess this one up. And that's what always courses through my mind. I'm establishing the precedent for everyone else to come. And for me, when it comes to identity in the workplace, I always try to hold myself a little bit higher than most, just because I always have that background fear of, I don't want to ruin this opportunity or experience for someone else, right? There is more hesitation in that. So I don't ever want to represent myself nor the culture in a bad light. So in that same instance, I also consider the fact that I am a first generation Latino here in the United States. So someone who may be second generation already has some benefits that I do not have, just frankly. So having to work around that to see, okay, if they have experienced someone that is a second generation Latino, they'll see that difference immediately. So how do I work around that? Or how do I make myself stand out? And it is that constant thing of making sure that I'm good, that I'm presentable, that I can express myself freely, while also not putting anyone else down. Because as long as we are minorities, as long as we are seen a certain way, we can't allow one another to hinder each other's ability to move forward, to move up in the world. So I constantly think about that. So when I interact with my colleagues at work, or I'm talking to volunteers, I want them to feel free to express anything that they may feel in regards to any gripes that they may have, or feel to express themselves in the way that they would at home, right? Because that already breaks down some walls. You get closer to that person, and you are able just to connect better. And that's something that we often forget about.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, panelists. All right, I'm moving on to my next question. And panelists, just an FYI, if we could kind of keep our answers to a minute if we can, just because we have a lot to cover and I want to be able to hear all of you all's perspectives. The Harvard Business Review published an article titled, "The Benefits of Bringing Your Whole Identity to Work." In general, how important do you believe individual identity helps a company or organization achieve their overall mission? And how do companies or organizations value individual identity? And I'm going to start with you, Lamanda, because you kind of touched upon this a little bit in your last answer. But if you want to expound just a little bit more, especially as it relates to your organization.
Yeah, and that makes me think, like, even just working in corporate America, how the person that you may walk in the door as, the moment that you may say something combative, or the moment that you may disagree, it's like, oh, like, we don't know that person. So the reason why it's so important to show up as your whole self is because you want to be accepted, right? You want to be accepted in no matter what room you walk in. And some people aren't as receptive to change as much as they would love to say they are. Companies love calling the whole, we're diverse, we're inclusive. And what that looks like for them may simply be, we have this percentage of Black people, we have this percentage of Muslim people working here, but they don't know the culture of those individuals. They don't understand who they are. And they depend on the employees to fill in those gaps for each other. And that's just not how it should be. And so it's just so important just to walk in the door as you are. Don't code switch. Don't feel the need to hinder parts of yourself that you know are important and valuable to you. Because the moment that you open those conversations early on, they can advocate for you in different ways. Like people are willing to say, like, oh yeah, hey, like, maybe in this particular country that she's from, this holiday is important to them. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're giving them that particular holiday or PTO off because we didn't know about it, but you just opened up a new door for us. And this will help us grow our company to help other people see that, hey, we are culturally in tune with different backgrounds, different religions. Like, we're willing to open the door to different ERGs, which are employee resource groups that will allow you to want to be part of our company culture.
Thank you, Lamanda. Any of our other panelists, would y'all like to chime in for this particular question?
Sure, I'm happy to open, if you don't mind, just because I think the perspective of the venture capital ecosystem may be actually very relevant to this conversation. So I think a lot of us have heard the appalling stats around venture capital in general. So just in general terms, less than 10% of all venture capital funding goes to women, minority, and other marginalized groups of founders. And there is a variety of different reasons why that's the case. But There is definitely this idea of unconscious bias in decisions regarding funding startups and funding companies. That's beyond just, a white male in their 30s. So in our case, Outlander Labs, when our founders thought about the idea for the fund, very quickly, especially with the conversations around social justice this year, they knew that they had an opportunity to sort of influence that aspect of VC world. So if you look through our team on our website, it is a diverse group of individuals making funding decisions. So we did not want to be called a diversity fund. That's not kind of part of our thesis. The way we are trying to solve the issue of unconscious bias is to put the decision-making opportunity into the hands of diverse individuals, with the hope that the unconscious bias is just not going to be as prevalent in some of those decisions. So how important is identity in the workplace, and how important it is to bring your identity to the table? I think very important.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you. Zarian and Daniel?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say this. Showing up as my whole self is very important, especially in my organization, because my organization is for transgender women of color. However, we do outsource to other organizations. A part of my mission and my goal for having different chapters in the central and southern parts of the state is having cisgender people, having different races of people, and having different gender identity and sexual identities that sit on these chapters. We're getting ready to establish our Columbus, Georgia chapter. And I just got word yesterday that we have a non-binary, trans, and we have a cisgender person. One's Black, one's white, and one is Hispanic, which is great because we don't show up in different aspects in the state of Georgia, especially the middle and southern regions of our state. There's not a lot of positive trans visibility. So having those, having the diverse group of people in those chapters that's going to be over those chapters is important, because now we are able to actually have positive representation where we can be like, oh, wow. So there are people that look just like me, that may identify who just like me. And now I can have a voice now at this point. And that's one of the really the main reasons why I've always wanted to make sure, even with my chapter in Macon,
All right. Am I still here, you all? Can you still see me and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna wait for Zarian to come back to finish. Daniel, will you pick up where, or answer this question for us, please?
Will do. Just to kind of keep it short, because I know we are focusing on the time here. Identity plays a significant role in any organization, in the sense that the more that you're able to feel like yourself in your place of work, the happier that you'll feel being in the organization or a company. And the happier you feel, the more likely you're to perform better at your job. Your individual identity is pivotal to the success of any individual, group, organization, company, and just having those unique voices and collaborative effort is invaluable to the success of companies or organizations. While some may not fully appreciate the diverse aspects of what makes someone them, others will. And as long as you are able to create that positive work environment for your colleagues, for your friends, it makes it all worth it. And you are able to be more productive in the workplace, have more uh, intuitive work to showcase.
All right, thank you, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our next question, panelists, and hopefully Zarian will be able to join us again. So in our careers, we will often work with others who share different identities than us that may also incorporate different beliefs, customs, and expectations. What has been your experience of working with others of different identities, cultural backgrounds, and/or ideologies, and how did you grow in this experience? And I will leave that open to anyone who would like to go first.
Happy to hop in very quickly and just to give my few cents on this. Two examples. Back at Georgia State during my undergrad studies, I was a part of Model UN, and I would highly encourage anybody on this particular call to look it up at Georgia State. Wonderful experience, wonderful team, and a wonderful opportunity to work with people from absolutely every part of the world. So we're talking diversity from the angle of national origin, but also racial and others. So that was definitely a huge learning experience for someone who, again, came from an environment and community that was kind of the same all over. And then moving into working at the state level, the Georgia Department of Economic Development, we helped companies export their products and services by working with, not a lot of people know that, but the state of Georgia has international offices in probably at this point 13 different markets. So being able to tap into the resources of those markets and work with individuals that came from those particular countries and represented not only businesses but also individuals in those particular countries was a growing experience for me personally, that was growing my expertise and definitely allowed me to be better at my job. So I would encourage everybody to look for opportunities to be as much as they can exposed to people from that look, feel, and are different than themselves.
Thank you, Anya. And we have Zarian is back. I'm gonna read the question again just for Zarian in case you missed it. So in our careers, we will often work with others who share different identities than us that may also incorporate different beliefs, customs, and expectations. What has been your experience of working with others of different identities, cultural backgrounds, and/or ideologies, and how did you grow in this experience? So I'm going to move now to Lamanda, Daniel, then Zarian.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is just me working with global teams. A lot of people within the menstrual equity space, and we're all global, right? We have a Slack group where we'll chat, we'll set up meetings from time to time. But I noticed that when you're leading projects, it's things that could be as simple as like maybe there's a language barrier or maybe their communication style is different. And so I had to learn as somebody that's super type A, I'm like, look, this is what I need and this is how we need to get it done. Sometimes like something as simple as a one-on-one every week and popping in and checking in on people, it helps because it helps me understand, well, this is how this person communicates. This particular person may not understand that, yeah, we're working around lines. Yeah, we're working around the same goals and the same objectives, but just the way that they do things in their particular country is just different. And so when you're working on those global teams, it's just so important that you go the extra mile to really understand that person. And for me, one-on-one meetings, while we're virtual anyway, one-on-one meetings every week or every couple of weeks, just whatever works for them, just has really helped me get a better understanding on breaking down those barriers between us.
Thank you, Lamanda. Daniel, and then Zarian.
A vast majority of my experience with working with folks from different backgrounds actually came from GSU and my place where I grew up in. Big shout out to the International Student Associations Council, Exact Fam, because that's probably where I was able to interact with the most diverse people from different parts of the world. So it was that initial understanding that, we're all here for a reason. And you may have a different way of communicating, you may have a different way of holding yourself, but we have an established goal here that is the same. And building on how we get to our goal with their reasons why they're doing something, why they are pursuing their particular degree path, why they're pursuing their career, and what were the underlying factors behind that. I think that is what makes working with people from different identities, cultural backgrounds so beautiful. Is that you do get that holistic approach that you may have not otherwise gotten, and you see how someone else thinks, and you carry those stories with you to one, you become a better person, as I hope. You become a better person, and you carry part of their will to strive to do better with you. You know, we are all advocating for ourselves, for one another, as we keep going up and up. And that is the beauty of meeting people with different cultural identities. And we are just here to support one another, because we know at the end of the day, despite the differences, we all have similar disadvantages.
Thank you, Daniel. And lastly for this question, Zarian.
Zarian, you're muted.
Am I muted now?
We can hear you.
You're good, Zarian.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm so sorry. Let me apologize. My internet is acting cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs right now, so let me apologize for that. But I just wanted to just say this. With me being a
All right, it looks like we may have lost Zarian again, but we are going to keep hope alive, okay? So we're going to allow her the opportunity to get back, and then if we have time, I would like for her to answer this question and all of those things. So we, moving forward, this question kind of goes hand in hand with this question. Oh, she's back. Hold on. Zarian, you there?
Okay, yes, I'm here.
All right, awesome. So you cut off a little bit. We heard the first part of your sentence, and then you were gone.
Okay, y'all. I was so glad when I said this internet service go. I'm so sorry again. Please forgive me.
It's okay.
So what I was saying was, when I started working at the company where I'm at now, it was a bit of a culture shock for a lot of people, because they had never interacted with a trans person before. And so with them not being able to may have never interacted with a person like me, I had to make sure that I was ultra sensitive to their needs, because we all do have different religion and spiritual diversity on our job, and we see things a lot differently. And so I had to make sure that I was just respectful of their views, and not really go into any type of power struggle with religion conversations and things like that. So for me, now the company has like kind of almost integrated, like really understanding who LGBTQ people are. Thank God for that, and my director. So I was able to get that introduced. So it really helps knowing that that me being different, and me being a trans person can come into an organization and a company and be able to open up the eyes and be able to hire more trans people and LGBTQ people, because now we do have a clear understanding of who we are. So.
Thank you, Zara. And I think that's a very interesting point too, us stepping into our various identities, whatever those may be, if they're marginalized, where sometimes we feel as if we have to go with the culture of that particular, company or organization or what have you. And hopefully what this teaches us is that as we grow, we don't have to live up to those types of expectations, that we can show up as our full self without the assimilation part, if you will. And so I'd like to get into the next question, which is kind of related to the question that we asked previously. So we have some GSU alumni. I think another GSU alumni, Zarian, you graduated from Georgia Southern, correct?
No, I graduated from Argosy University.
Completely off, forgive me. And Lamanda is a North Carolina A&T alumni. So how did your in-school experiences with international students help prepare you for work with international colleagues? And we'll start with Anya, and then whoever would like to chime in, absolutely.
Sure. So I sort of, I think, started on the path of answering that question earlier. So again, Georgia State came here 2004. I mean, the school and the whole downtown area has changed tremendously since then. But for someone who came from Poland at that point, it was a culture shock initially, but then again, this amazing experience of working with people from and studying with people from all over the globe. So it kind of brings up this idea of global mindset. I mean, it's hard to define, but it's definitely something very important that I've learned to appreciate in the past 10 years. So it's not just being aware of the fact that people are from other places in the world, but really to kind of realize that because you have not walked in their shoes and you're not from that particular background and culture, you may need to be a little bit more open and a little bit more understanding to how others do certain things and how others work. And I think that going forward to working with international businesses and sort of again with people from other parts of the world later in my career, that experience was tremendous and very valuable because it already taught me to be extra sensitive, but not in the negative sense of extra sensitive, but aware of the fact that people come with different sets of experiences and cultures, and you have to be sort of extra aware of how you talk with them, how you work with them, and respectful of what their experience might have been in the past. And then that sort of opens the door even in the business world going forward.
Absolutely. Would any of our other panelists like to chime in and answer this question? And y'all, I'm gonna pick on you because you went to Georgia State University as well.
Fair enough, fair enough. But you know, I always say it, big shout out to the Isaac fam. Because, you know, from working with international students, I was able to learn from their experience. And despite whatever part of the world that they may be from, there was a common goal. And from being a part of the Latin American Student Association very early on and having those interactions very early on, I was able to see kind of the history of themselves as individuals and the history of their culture, and how there's that overlap between our culture as Latinos and their culture in, maybe, let's say, the Philippines. And seeing how we have similar food, similar traditions, just done in a slightly different way. And I say that all to say, you know, we aren't too different from one another. We really aren't. We may put lime on certain dishes and some people don't. But at the end of the day, we are pretty similar in that. And through my experiences, it's just to look for those commonalities. Look for those commonalities, because once you do, it makes everyone feel a lot more relaxed, because when you're put into a different environment, when you're put into places that you aren't entirely familiar with, and that automatically makes you a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit on edge, and just being able to have someone that you can relate to on any extent makes the whole process a lot easier to digest, and it just makes everything a lot more fun to build on those commonalities. So I take that experience with me when I'm working with my colleagues of international backgrounds, because I know right away, like, hey, we can find this common ground. Let's get to work, and we'll be the best of friends.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Would any other panelists like to answer before we move on to our next question? All right, that is fine. All right, so have you ever experienced a time in which your individual identity felt as if it were a hindrance to the mission or value of the company or organization that you've been a part of? And do you feel as if the value of identity is changing within companies or organizations? And I'll open up with Lamanda and we'll move to Zarian.
Yes, I literally thought about the moment I started my nonprofit. So just some background, I live in Austin, Texas, and everyone loves Austin because they think it's so progressive, but Austin is one of the most covert racist cities I've ever lived in. So I started this nonprofit. Everybody loves my nonprofit, right? They love the mission. They love the fact that we're donating to homeless women who can't access menstrual products. They love that we're donating to schools. But for some reason, when it comes to funding and they see a Black woman at the forefront, when I tell you, like, they want paperwork that companies don't even ask for, they want to know, well, what have you done so far? Do I know somebody that has worked with you? It's like, it's not, I mean, I could understand, you know, smaller nonprofits, we're not on the level of American Red Cross, right? But if you're saying that you want to build a relationship, you're saying that you want to support us, just because you see a Black woman doesn't mean that what she's doing is not true to self. It doesn't mean that what we're doing is something fraudulent. And so my strategy became where you don't see me in any of my nonprofit collateral. I wouldn't take any pictures inside of our nonprofit groups. If you look on our social media, you really got to dig deep to find a picture of me. And the reason why I did that is because I do have such a diverse executive board and everyone loves the work we do. And so I'm like, well, if I show more of my board, if I show that we're diverse, and yes, there are white women here, but that doesn't mean that she's the one running it. Like, maybe people will be more receptive to donating. And that's how we're a small nonprofit, but we've been really successful within 3 years. And I think the first thing I think about is, like, when we have events, and say if we have an event where we're tabling, I'll usually have, like, you know, someone who wants to donate. And again, Austin, we're full of predominantly white people. I think we have less than 7% of Black professionals within the city. And so I don't always get like a lot of Black volunteers, but if there's a white girl standing at my table, white women, white men, they're more receptive to talk to her versus seeing me standing there and not even realizing you're at my table. So I think the biggest thing that it's taught me is just that you kind of got to have a strategy around it. And I think with the whole issues with George Floyd happening and with so many Black people dying at the hands of police officers and things like that, all of a sudden everyone wants to be supportive, right? It's now that we see that there's a Black woman leading a nonprofit, so let's throw her in a couple of more magazines during this time. Let's throw some funding her way during this time. But when those sequence of events end and when people aren't talking about it and it's not the forefront anymore, then what happens? Like, where does the support go? And so I think it's just important that I continue to have a diverse executive board, just because at some point you just have to know, like, how to move around the room and how to navigate.
Thank you, Lamanda. Zarian?
Oh, a really good question. Very good question. So I will say that my mouth is a hindrance for my organization because I speak out. I am so vocal when it comes to how smaller grassroots organizations like mine, how we are so underfunded, and how a lot of the bigger organizations get a lot of the monies that we actually apply for. One of the things that I said against one of these bigger organizations was that, you know, you all put money over people, but the grassroots organizations, we put people over money. And that got me in a lot of trouble with a lot of people because of the simple fact, because I am a Black-led trans organization, nobody really wants to hear us. A lot of people see us as numbers and statistics versus just really seeing what our needs really are. And so to Lametta's point, that's why I have wanted to kind of step back and refrain from being at the forefront of a lot of the things that we do, because my mouth gets me in trouble, because I cannot stand when I hear people, really going in on Black trans-led organizations that's really out here, that's doing the work. And so now that's why I have my chapters, and I have my presidents of these chapters now, and they're the faces, and that's why I'm grateful for a very diverse group of people sitting on these boards and being in these chapters now, so that way people will be more amped to, because I'm just so vocal. And William knows this, I'm an advocate and I'm an activist. So I speak out about any injustices that I see in our community. And just here in the state of Georgia, thank God we flipped blue. Thank you, Stacey. We felt blue this year, but it just goes to show there's so much work that has got to go into really altering how people have seen things for so long. And so hopefully with the momentum that we have with Georgia Flipping Blue, people can actually start seeing now that we're more than just this deep red rooted state. We're so diverse in who we are, and hopefully we'll start getting more attention, especially the grassroots organizations that are so terribly underfunded, because of the bigger organizations getting the majority of the monies that we actually apply for and that we need here on the ground. So I just wanted to say that. But yeah, Lamanda, like, kudos to you, girl, staying over there in Austin, honey.
Thank you. Anya or Daniel, would you like to contribute to this particular question?
I just quick comment. I mean, I was listening to Amanda, and it really just like gets me so upset that someone who is running a wonderful organization, obviously doing amazing work in the community, has to feel like she cannot be the face of her own organization. I mean, this is why changes have to happen, because this conversation would never happen if, Amanda looked differently. I mean, it almost enrages me, because, I see successful organizations and startups every day, and to have that still kind of linger out there is absolutely, absolutely horrible. Just a quick comment.
Thank you, Anya. Daniel?
I mean, for me, since most of my professional history has been with the Democratic Party of Georgia, I haven't necessarily had to face that too much because it has been a very welcoming party. It has been a very welcoming group. But I have seen folks who have those different backgrounds, who come from corporate America or different sectors of nonprofits, and have that hesitance to share their identity or to do things that would drive someone who may identify like them out, especially in this and the polarizing climate that we are in, especially leading up to the election. For me, it was just more seeing how that affects and bleeds into other lines of work. From a past experience, they felt as though that they couldn't be their full selves because of how the environment was at a prior workplace, or how the reaction was at the prior workplace when it was brought up. Some places aren't as welcoming to the different thoughts, different ideas, and different identities that were put onto the table. To kind of go back to an earlier point, sometimes they just want the statistic. So it is up to all of us to make sure that we are able to advocate for one another and really be advocates for each other's identity.
Thank you. All right, panelists, we have a few more moments. If someone was interested in international work, what advice would you provide on understanding the balance of their own identity and integrating it with the culture of the geographical location? So I know Lamanda and Anya, you all talked about a little bit of more of the global work. So do y'all want to expound upon that particular question?
I'm trying to gather my thoughts, sorry. If you're interested in international work, regardless of the identity, I would definitely try to kind of plug into that sort of ecosystem as early as you can. So, I've mentioned Model UN, a lot of chapters available at a lot of different universities, definitely at Georgia State, look them up. From the perspective of someone who's been in the professional career for a while, internships are truly an amazing way to get yourself plugged in because it really sort of ties into another area, network. What I mean by that is, and I wish I had known that early on, but try to have conversations and put yourself in front of as many people as possible, and people that you've identified sort of are 5-10 years ahead of you. And one thing you're going to learn very quickly, people want to help. If you ask for guidance, if you ask for mentorship, people will find even a little bit of time to sort of guide you and give you advice and sort of steer you in the right direction. So I guess quick answer would be identify sort of the direction you see yourself going into. It doesn't have to be very specific, but you sort of want to start putting the fillers out there. And again, now with the virtual, I don't know how long this is going to last, but probably element of that will be with us for a while. It's on some level so much easier to get in front of some people. Before, when the in-person meeting was really the way to go, it probably wouldn't happen as often. Now people are more than willing to give even 10-15 minutes of their time. So try to, and asking, if you don't ask, you're not going to know. So even if the no's come, there will be some yeses, and people are definitely willing to help. So I would, again, just to summarize, talk to people, network, put yourself out there. There is nothing like failure. It's just another lesson. So that's just my piece of feedback.
Thank you. Ms. Ballard.
Honestly, she honestly covered everything that I would have said. Network. I'm all about putting some time on people's calendar, even if I feel like it's someone in a C-level, suite, but I really want to have a meeting with them. I'll go even as far as send them a virtual $5 gift card. I mean, to Starbucks or something, just so that people know you appreciate them taking the time to have a meeting with you. My biggest thing also has been like, do your research on the back end. If there's something in a particular space that you're passionate about and you want to know who else internationally is doing that same work, look on social media, hop on Google, switch around your search engine so that you're able to search in other countries. But there's always people who share similar values and similar their mission as you. So find out who's doing the work and just have a conversation with them.
Awesome. All right, our final three questions, and please, panelists, please feel free if you are moved to answer, please do. For individuals belonging to marginalized identities and are seeking equitable and identity-focused work, how might one search for those opportunities and career paths? All right, panelists, I'm going to start picking on folks. I'm going to go with Zarian.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me okay? All right, awesome. All right, so so if anybody wants to, wants to see any type of work where they may feel appreciated and also get paid for what they're doing, especially if they have put into work of going to school and all that. One of the things I was just telling a good friend of mine the other day, I said, you have to know what your calling is. You have to know what it is that you want to do. And if you are really for helping people, then make sure you understand and what space and arena you get ready to go over into. Hence the reason why I have been in mental health for 10 years, and I've been started my organization almost 4 years ago. Now, because of the disparities that I saw within the transgender community, I really didn't see any positive trends, visibility, and I really didn't see any other organizations really speaking to those things that were really needed and that were necessary for us. So anybody that's really wanted to get in that type of work, do the research, know what's needed in these communities, know what's needed at whatever company or organization you're getting ready to fill an application out or look at. Do your research and know what's going on. Know your statistics about certain things before you just make the ultimate decision to move forward, working in any type of capacity that you feel like you may be able to do. That's good, but then when you get into it, it may not be your thing. So do your research first.
Absolutely. And moving into this next question, Daniel, this one is for you. What questions would you suggest, especially working with the Democratic Party, and you felt like your identity has been pretty much affirmed in this organization? What questions would you suggest an individual ask in an interview to ensure that the company or organization's culture and values align with your identity?
So I would say the first question that immediately comes to mind is just ask about how they handle conflict management uh, within the organization with two people with different ideologies, right? Uh, just to get the sense of, okay, what is their approach? How did they come to a resolution, and see where the differences may lie, and build the commonalities from there. Um, I think that's an excellent way to kind of pinpoint, this is something for you based on like how they communicate that conflict resolution, and to see how overall company culture is, because you can't always just ask like, oh, does your company align with my values? So you kind of have to work around that. So asking of questions geared towards the company culture. Um, See how ideas are played out in the workplace, and see um, kind of that introspective uh, perspective from the interviewer.
Thank you, Daniel. And panelists, this question is for all of you as we close out. What final piece of advice concerning identity within the workplace, either domestic or international, would you like to share with participants? So we'll go Zarian, Lamanda, Anya, and Daniel.
One of the things I will leave with anyone watching is, make sure you show up for yourself in the room. Be yourself. Don't be anyone else. Advocate for others. If you see something, say something.
Lamanda?
Yes, I think the biggest thing, especially when it comes to employment and where you're trying to work and where you're trying to basically further someone else's mission, is make sure that there's an employee resource group in place. And I say that because a lot of times you walk into these workplaces and they're not diverse at all, and they may be depending on you to be the diversity that the company needs. And I think it's important to find out, how are they going the extra mile, and how are they taking the initiative to make sure that you feel included. So find out if there's ERGs or employee resource groups.
Anya?
I would say don't sabotage yourself on the onset. So like literally give others the opportunity to reject you. Don't reject yourself. So don't overthink. Don't think what others may be thinking about you or your background or your experience. Kind of put it out there and see what comes back. I think a lot of us make a mistake of sabotaging ourselves and rejecting ourselves before we even give others a chance to do that.
And finally, but definitely not least, Daniel.
I would say just be yourself. And the one piece of advice that I always try to leave everyone is just introduce yourself by how your name is supposed to be pronounced in your native tongue, right? At the very beginning of this, I pronounced my name as Daniela Maguer Gaspar, right? I didn't say just Daniel. I didn't do the full English Daniel Maguer Gaspar. I did it the way that I was raised to say it. And I do that because a very good friend of mine told me, and she's doing pretty well for herself in corporate America, to introduce yourself like that because it makes you stick out. One, it shows that you're still true to your roots. It shows that you're true to yourself, and just having that unwavering system, self self-supporting system, just knowing that you know who you are, goes a long way with people.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I just want to say thank you all for attending this Talk Tuesday Business Meets World as a part of International Education Week. I would like to thank our panelists for your experience, your expertise, and just keeping it real with us. It's always greatly appreciated, and this is what these Talk Tuesdays are for. And I'd also like to thank our office or department collaborators for this project. Thank you all so much. This is our final Talk Tuesday of the semester. I know, sad face, but we will start up again in February for the kickoff of Black History Month, where we'll be talking about Black futurism or Afrofuturism. So we look forward to seeing you in February. Sorry, this is November. We look forward to seeing you in February. Also, please don't forget to check out the other great events that are happening for International Education Week. I believe that website is iew.gsu.edu, or you could do a quick Google search. But yes, International Education Week is still going on. Once again, we thank you for our panelists, and you all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. See you all later.
Thank you.